first step of any problem of the week is to underline key information and the question you need to answer. So please do that right now. Phoebe's doing it. Thank you, Phoebe. Devin looks like she's doing it. Don't try to solve it right now. Okay, so the story takes a slight turn towards the exciting because now there's a mystery that hasn't existed before, which is something happened to that poor kid, Jake. Remember, he's something like a 17-year-old or something. And he has been mysteriously kidnapped away. Now we need to figure out where he is.
Is he the one who didn't want to go on the cruise?
17-year-old.
No.
Like the one who was...
No, that's Miguel. Who's Yeah, tell us about Jake. Actually, Sam will tell us about Jake in a nice movie tone. What he was.
Okay.
Come on, Sam, don't
He's
be
a 17-year-old who finished high school early and is working for his aunt as a favor.
Dun dun dun.
Okay, listen up. So this problem, Devin, Reese, this problem is what type of math? I want to figure that out ahead of time. What type of math is this problem?
Like, patterns. Yeah.
It's pattern, but how do we say that? Identifying patterns.
Yeah.
So this is pattern identification. And that actually is the basis of algebra. That is what algebra basically is. Identifying and describing patterns. There's some kind of geometry attached to this too. And I want you to notice one thing about the question. It says, there might be several correct answers to this puzzle. So if you think you found one answer, congratulations, make sure it works. But you probably should find another way to answer that. Because it says might. It doesn't mean that there is another way, but there might be. It was interesting today, I was talking to some 8th graders about the POW problems, and one of the things that they noticed was that the harder the problem was to solve, sometimes the easier it was to write about, and then vice versa. Sometimes the easiest problems to solve are the hardest ones to write about. And I'm very intrigued by that idea, and I want you to consider thinking about it down the line.
For me, it's because there's more to explain when it's a harder problem, because you can go into depth on how you found it and how hard it was for you, and when it's easy, you just want to state the answer right there because you're like, it's obviously this. Like, I didn't really think much about it. There's not as many steps that you did to solve the problem. There's not as many things. So you feel like your essay is kind of shorter, and you're like, well, I wish you could write more, and then you might add things that are pointless that might get you marked down.
Well, that's very interesting to me. So short essays are not necessarily bad essays, but things that are obvious can be very difficult to describe why they are obvious, and I think it's very insightful.
Yeah, it just seems like kind of obvious because it's, I guess you could say, common knowledge in a way. Like, the answer is just right there sometimes, or just takes like a short, like, way of thinking of it. So then it just seems obvious because it's just common logic that people who don't really feel the need to explain because you assume everyone understands it. So.
It reminds me of like when Europeans used to think the world was flat, and if you sailed off to the edge, you'd fall over. And that was obvious because it looks obvious, like that happens. If you watch a boat go off into the horizon, sooner or later it disappears, and you can imagine it fell off. And how difficult it was to think about a different, about the world being round. And so it's one of those things. What looks obvious sometimes is not the best answer. So put this POW away right now. My suggestion, though, is that you try to write it before Friday. Since you don't have school on Thursday, you probably will get some other homework, but you should probably go ahead and write that up.